Today, I'm going to share 5 tips and tricks that I use every day to make my sublimation life easier. If you'd like to find out what they are, stick around. Hey everybody, welcome. If this is your first time here, my name is Roy, and on this channel we talk about sublimation and lasers. Today, I'm going to share 5 tips and tricks that I use every time I do sublimation. So, here they are. Tip number 1, quality tape. If you want to get me fired up, go join my Facebook group and create a post that says, I hate yellow tape, don't use yellow tape. That's literally like me saying, I have a green car, I hate my green car, don't buy a green car. It is not about the color of the tape, it's about the quality or the manufacturer of the tape. And there are many different manufacturers of yellow tape, as there are blue and probably clear. I can tell you the tape that I use, I get it from Amazon. There will be a link in the description. I have done thousands of tumblers, thousands of coffee mugs, hundreds of leather baseball caps, all kinds of stuff. I have never had an issue with this tape. The only issue I had was very early on. I was pressing too hard and that would create sometimes tape marks on the tumbler. And that has nothing to do with the quality of the tape. That's all about the pressure on the tumbler. On a side note, there are 2 things that can cause those tape marks. The first is if you're using a tumbler press, you're using too much pressure. Back off. You need next to no pressure when using a tumbler press. The second issue could be that the manufacturer didn't completely bake the tumbler before they shipped it out. And the way to correct that is to pre-press it for a short period of time before you use it. I would say 30 seconds to a minute is perfectly fine. Let it cool back down and then treat it as it's brand new. That very rarely happens, but it could be an issue. So, tip number 1, buy good quality tape. Tip number 2, use wide tape. Now, you don't have to use wide tape. You don't really have to do any of these tips, but they are tips and tricks that I use that help me out a lot. I use 2 widths of tape. The normal width that I use is 13 millimeters, and the wide tape that I use is 20 millimeters. I used to use only wide tape, and I accidentally ordered some of the regular one time. So I've kind of switched. I've got this tape dispenser that I found a while back, and I have both widths of tape on here. So this thick tape works really well when you're pulling tape tight. I won't get into the details of how I wrap my tumblers, but I secure the seam with this thin tape, and that is the 13 millimeter tape. And so I'll do my seam with that. And then I do 2 wraps on the top and the bottom of the tumbler. The first wrap I use this thin tape, and all I'm doing then is getting the tumbler to lay flat. I used to say the word tight, and that was incorrect. To lay flat against the tumbler. And so there's no pressure involved in this. It's just making sure I get that paper flat on the tumbler. Then I use this tape to pull it really, really tight. So that first piece of tape will get everything flat, but you know how sometimes there's the little teeny crinkles in there? This tape, I pull it really, really tight. And the first tape keeps the paper from shifting on the tumbler. That way I can pull this tape really, really tight. And sometimes I break it, I pull it so tight, but that really pushes in those creases that you may have that you didn't even see. So tip number 2 is use this thick tape. It helps me out a whole lot, at least with my tumblers. Tip number 3, I use this 24-inch metal ruler, and it does not have a backing. There's no cork, there's no felt, it's just steel. And I love that because I can more easily manipulate this ruler. I think some people use, and I actually have one of those little jigs that you slide the razor, and I like it, but not for this. I like getting extremely precise. And part B of this 3rd tip and trick is I use a piece of white typing paper that I sit down over the design. And the reason is because sometimes my hands get a little clammy, and there have been a few times that I have taken an image with a lot of black on it and put my palm on that thing, and after I make a cut, I lift it up, and sure enough, I've messed up the design a little bit. So part B of tip and trick number 3 is I use paper. But I use this metal ruler, and the reason I use it is because I can go in and I can very, very easily slide this and get this to where it is. See how my hand pulled that paper up? Get this to where, this is how I cut all of my designs. I do the top, then I do the bottom, And I use this metal ruler for every single one of them. Then I take the side that is going to not be overlapped, and I get really, really, really close, just like I did the top and the bottom. And then on the last side, because it's going to overlap, I'll come in and go up against it like that, and then go beep, a little bit further out, a little bit further out, and I slice it, and then I've got that, just that little bit of space that's going to be part of the overlap. So tip number 3, I use this metal ruler so I can very easily slide it around and get the cut perfect. Tip number 4, I peel my tumblers hot. My mugs are a little different. I'll talk about those in a second, but I peel the tumbler hot because it's just so much easier to get that tape off when it's hot. Now, I don't completely pull all the tape off. I just get most of it off. I'll show you what I'm talking about. My routine is I'll take my top section and I will pull that off, and then I take the bottom section and I peel the 2 pieces of the tape off there. Now my paper is still flat against there, it's not moved at all. There's one reason I leave a little teeny lip right here, because I can take this and peel it down. Notice how it's still flat. And then what I will do is I'll peel it down and I'll drop it and stop it right there. I let that sit for the amount of time that it takes me to do another tumbler. So I'll start doing this and I put another tumbler in. I press my tumblers for a total of 150 seconds each. 50 seconds, rotate, 50 seconds, rotate, 25, rotate, 25. There's a video about that if you're interested. But during that time, I let it sit. Now, this stainless steel is going to drop below a temperature that would allow the ink to turn to gas pretty quickly. 350 is about the temperature that sublimation starts. I'm sure there are variables, maybe humidity, maybe, all sorts of temperature, I don't know, ink. But for the most part, 350 degrees is where your ink is going to start to turn to a gas, or below that where it's gonna stop doing it. So this stainless steel cools pretty darn quickly. In the 150 seconds it takes my other tumbler to make, I can let this sit and rest. And my little manufacturing process is that as soon as I start to peel this one, I put another one in and I let this sit. So we're going to assume that it's been a minute and a half or 2 minutes. Again, I wait until that almost full 150 seconds. And then what I'll do is I take this last piece of tape, pull it off, take the sticky side and put it right on there, and then pull it around, and it's done. Now, let's talk about coffee mugs. They are different. Coffee mugs are ceramic or porcelain, and it takes a lot longer for them to cool. So what I do, my little manufacturing routine is I will take a mug out. I do my mugs for 190 seconds in the mug press. I'll take it out when it's finished and I'll set it down. I'll put another one in. That other one is in for 190 seconds. I'll pull it out. When I take the third one out, I go back to the first one. So it's been 400 seconds or so, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever. It's been enough time for that to cool down. Ceramic takes a while, or porcelain takes a while to cool down. And most of my designs on coffee mugs are black text, funny little sayings on white. So it's very easy to see that ghosting happen if I pull them out too soon. So I definitely wait a little bit longer on these. But these, I mean, just in the little bit of time I've had to talk, it's warm, but it's not gonna burn me. So that is tip number 4, peel hot. Oh, I need to say one other thing. I'm sorry. Please, for the love, don't ever dip your tumbler or your coffee mugs into any temperature water. These tumblers are double walled. That means there's no air in between 2 pieces of stainless steel. This little bottom piece, let me pull that off. This is where the air is sucked out. You have a chance of breaking that seal on the inside and you'll never know it. it could cause that seal to be compromised and break down the road. So if you sold it to somebody down the road, they're gonna have a tumbler that doesn't stay hot or cold depending on what they want it to do. Coffee mugs, please, I hear people talk about it all the time. The ceramic or the porcelain is not meant to go to extreme from heat to cold. You wouldn't take an ice cold glass and throw it in hot water and not expect it to break. So the problem is, you don't see anything oftentimes, so you assume it's okay. But there are little cracks that can always occur within the inside of that porcelain or ceramic. And the last thing you want is to have somebody drinking a cup, your friend, your family member, somebody you sold the coffee mug to, drinking a cup of coffee and that thing shatter and pour hot coffee all over them. So please don't dip your tumbler or your coffee mug into anything. It takes 150 seconds I let this sit, and for a coffee mug, I let it sit like 5 minutes before I peel it off. Do something else while that's happening. Anyway, that is tip number 4. And finally, tip number 5, my absolute favorite tip. I'm so glad I discovered it. I actually discovered this tip because my wife went to hit me on the head with a used paper towel roller. And I was like, hey, let me have that for a second. So here's what I do. After I've cut my design out and it's ready to go on the tumbler, I roll it up so it's just smaller than a paper towel roll, and I set it in there and I let it sit at least for a few hours. Oftentimes it's for a day or two. And then when I pull it out, it is ready to be put on a tumbler. I mean, I can't keep it from rolling around. I take it and set it on there, and it just pops on there. So this is like the coolest tip and trick of them all, because your paper just wraps itself around the tumbler perfectly. I absolutely love it. Find you paper towel rollers and hang on to them. In a pinch, I've taken the paper and put it into one of these, but it just doesn't get it quite as tight. I love doing this. And another little tip on tip number 5 is I use it for my sock designs too, because sometimes I noticed in the past that the paper might peel up a little bit, and as I'm putting that press down, it tends to shift. So I put my sock designs in a roller and get them curled up a little bit too. It helps those. And of course I have the toilet paper one for my coffee mugs. I don't always do this because oftentimes it's last minute when I'm doing the coffee mugs and I'm just doing a bunch of them, but it certainly helps. So tip number 5, use paper towel rollers to make your paper wrap comfortably and cozily around your tumbler. So that's it for the day. I hope that one or more of these tips helps you out. I'm sure down the road we'll have another set of 5 tips and probably another set of 5 after that, but that's it for today. If these helped you out in any way, shape, or form, I would greatly appreciate it if you liked this video. Definitely subscribe, click the notification bell so you'll know when new videos come out. Everything that I used in here except for the paper towel rolls is probably in the description. There's probably a link in the description. Some are affiliate links, some are not. I'm not sure which are. But anyway, check that out. And thank you so much for hanging out with me for a few minutes. Again, I hope this helps you out in some little small way. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. There's no cork on it. And my little manufacturing. Hey everybody, if this is your first visit to this channel, and the reason is this wider tape, and the reason is this wider, uh-oh.